Welcome to the Deal Final Corner. So this is your weekly property talk show brought to you by Property Filter, hosted by myself, Guillaume Black, your favorite Frenchman, CEO and co-founder at Property Filter. So as you know, it's the UK's highest rated platform to find deals. And we're on a mission to empower our property investor and deal sourcer members, do another 1,000 deals this year, thanks to the Property Filter blueprint. And the purpose really with this Deal Final Corners is to give you more and the best of the available resources by inviting expert guests. Members will share with you the latest and most current strategies, tactics, and secrets about what actually works right now in terms of finding and making deals and the reality of systemizing and running a high-performance business in property. So it really is my pleasure to introduce to you and have a conversation with my good friend Soheil Khan. So from a bit about Sohail's background, so from studying computer science to diving into the world of car sales. Sohail's journey has very much been, with a roller coaster and quite dynamic, and he's been transitioning from his tech career to a more fast-paced environment of sales and more recently property. And he's really good at communication and negotiating, and I know he's going to share quite a bit with us today on that aspect. And despite facing some challenges with a failing business during lockdown, Sohail has really pivoted into doing really well in property and showcasing the ability of what one can achieve with a determined spirit and looking for and embracing new opportunities. So in this session, Sohail is going to share some practical, straight-to-the-point strategy that he used that will help you uncover and negotiate lucrative property deals effectively and efficiently. And so there'll be no time wasted. We'll go straight to actionable insights and anything you can do to take away after today to actually start to do more deals, emulate what Sohail has been doing with Property Filter. So what we can expect from today, Sohail is going to take us through how he uses Property Filter to find pockets of areas for targeting his lead generation machine and engaging with motivated sellers. He will share with us a negotiation framework when it comes to direct-to-vendor deals when the phone rings, and he will give us some real examples of deal he's done. So I'm really chuffed and pleased to have you today. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about your talk and presentation and answering people's questions today. So thanks so much. Please give a massive Property Filter virtual welcome to Mr. Soheil Khan. Welcome.
I was just going to say, Guillaume, you know more about my life than I do.
Yeah, got a good assistant.
That's good. So I don't need to intro myself. I hope everybody's well. I was going to go into a bit of an intro, but I think Guillaume's already done a great job. So we'll dive straight into it. I think the first thing that I'm going to delve into straight away, because I know we are limited with time, we don't have all day. I wish we did. I could talk forever, to be honest with you, is how I personally use Property Filter to find pockets of areas that I then target. So I don't think there's anybody else that's doing what I'm doing, and I haven't really shared this before. It's worked for me, so I must say that it's worked for me. It definitely has, and I'm going to share it with you guys today, and we'll also do a bit of a demo of how I use Property Filter to go through it, and then you guys can try it, and hopefully it'll work for you guys as well. So just a bit of a breakdown. So really and truly, but the reason behind this was when I was doing cars back in the days, what I would usually find is on the marketplace, like how you would have Rightmove and Zoopla, there'd always be a few cars that are underpriced that I would have thought, and the same I thought would go for property. So I would think, if there's properties in a certain location that are worth 200,000, if I find one that could be worth 200,000 or the market value is 200,000, but it may be listed for 180 or 185, there's already been a bit of a discount done. So I don't need to go in and actually, try and knock off a full 40 or 50 grand. There's maybe already 10 or 15,000 that has been marketed poorly and it's already undervalued at. So I just got to go in and knock a little bit more off and I'm already good. So I was trying to find locations where that may be the case. So what I started doing was started playing around with Property Filter, and eventually I kind of started to pick up on things that, hold on a second, when I'm looking at the comparables, there's certain properties here, like 2 or 3, that are a bit undervalued, where on that street they're selling for maybe 240, 250, and there's one here that's come on for 210. Why is that? And I'm looking deeper into it. I couldn't figure it out. So I started looking more and more and more, and I started seeing more pockets of areas that had similar trends. And then what I would do was target them properties. And then you don't need to knock off as much, but sometimes you end up knocking off even more, and it's even better for yourself or for your investors or however you're doing it. So the biggest thing is cross-referencing different data points, as in comparables, sold subject to contract properties, as well as properties that are already listed on for sale. And if you find what I would like to call somewhat consistent anomalies, so you'll find a few that are underpriced compared to the others, and that's the ones that I would target usually. They do sell quite quick, but there have been cases where there's one or two just sitting around and I don't know why, and I'll target it and it ends up becoming a deal. So that's what we're going to go into today. So for example, let's say for example you're looking through these list of properties here. So what I would do is, when you now that I'm kind of used to it and I know my areas, I can kind of look to see and I'd say that one on that street that looks a bit cheap. But whereas if you're starting out or if you're going into an area you may not be too sure of, it might take you a couple of days to start kind of figuring out, okay, in this area these properties go for X amount, and there's this one here that's listed for X, and then you start finding more like that. So let's say for example we'll choose this one over here and we'll go straight into it. Okay, so what I would do here is straight away, I would go straight into the comparables. So I would open up this comparables here, and straight away I would just start looking at what else is listed within usually about a quarter of a mile. Or sometimes what you'll even find is there's certain streets. So I've found pockets of areas where there's 3 or 4 roads. I've got too many tabs opened. There's 3 or 4 roads where on that street, usually the done up values are say 280 or 290, but the houses that aren't really done up are coming on for like 230 to 40. But then there was one that came on at 210, and I was thinking, okay, so this is already 20 grand below the rest of the similar kind of properties in a not so good condition. And then in the end, I think when we negotiated, we came down to 171, 500. And there you go. So done up values are like 280, 290, and we've agreed 171, 500, but it was on for 210. So what I would do here is, so this is a 3-bed. Is it a terrace? Good thing to check first. Yeah, terraced house. Okay, so I would straight away first start by this postcode only, and if there's anything similar on, I'd start making notes and start trying to find consistency. So there's these properties on this street are worth X amount, and then I'd start branching out slowly, slowly. And you've got to do it. It's not going to happen overnight. You've got to keep going, trust the process, and after a couple of days, you'll start seeing that, okay, in this area, these properties are worth X, but there's one on this street that's on for this much. And then by doing that, you start picking up patterns and you start realizing, okay, in this pocket of area, I've got X. In this pocket of area, you've got X. But it doesn't work everywhere. I'll be honest with you. Like where I'm looking at is the whole of Birmingham. So in the whole of Birmingham, I found 5 or 6 areas where this works, and I usually just target them areas now. I'm still looking to see if I can find more. But like I said, if you go into your own areas or choose a town or choose a city, start with a bit of a bigger geographical location and then start narrowing down into areas. So for example, here, we'll see that this postcode only, PC wants to load. Okay, so I don't think there's any others on. So we'll have to go out a bit. Let's check within a quarter of a mile. I'm actually quite familiar with this area. So for example, now you can see that there's 3-bed terraced houses, 230, 210, 225, but this one here for some reason is standing out at 185. So I would probably have a look at this and see why is this one priced so low. It may well be that it's an auction property. Oops, it is. Let's have a look at it. But I think your biggest friend here would probably be your comparable data, as in what's sold. So usually, obviously, when you're looking at a property, let's say, for example, you find something on Rightmove, you might have a look at a property that's on a certain street and then find what's sold on that street and then work out your comparables like that. With this, it'd be the same scenario, but what you're trying to look for is comparables where there's significantly higher sold prices compared to what's listed right now. So, for example, with this one, Balham Grove, so it's come on at 190. They've increased it to 195 and dropped to 185 straight away. And then I know that compared to the others that were there, this one's like 20, 30 grand cheaper. then straight away I would go into Balham Grove. Let's see what the sold prices are on Balham Grove. Okay, so there's not much. The last one sold was in 2017. So let's go a bit further out and see if we can find anything. But this is kind of what I do day in, day out when I first started out. And within the first week, I was starting to find pockets of areas. And then what I would do was then target them areas. So there's one here that sold for 193, which is not much of a difference, 190, 172. So I can see here there's not a huge difference. There's one here at 220, but it looks like it's in much better condition to be fair than the one that we've just seen. Yeah. So I would just keep doing this over and over again, really and truly. Is
So, Sohail, to understand you, so you want to invest a bit of time to understand the value of properties in an area, and then find the ones that are priced below the average, so that there must be a reason for it to be priced like that. Is that right?
Yeah, but sometimes what you see is you see trends. So, for example, there's a certain location in Birmingham that I think you'll be quite familiar with, maybe Guillaume. And what I found was just because of where it was situated next to this park, the properties around there were worth a lot more than all the others. And then as I was looking closer, there was a big difference between the properties that needed work and the properties that were done up. So the ones that needed work were like 60, 70 grand cheaper. So there's already some sort of margin there to play with. But then what you'll find is that there's some agents in that area that are maybe not so used to the area, like they may be a bit further out, where they've got listings in the area, but they're listing them slightly below what they actually worth. So I'll
Yeah.
give you an example of at the end when I go through the examples, I'll give you like a case study. Okay, this one, this is what was happening, and this is how much the list prices were. But essentially, all you're doing is you're looking at properties and you're just going through them. I'll be honest with you, one by one by one by one by one. And what you'll start to notice is that hold on a second. So let me give an example. Say this one's on for 185, and we've opened the comparables now, if you're looking at the comparables and you're seeing that in that street, within a quarter of a mile of that area, the houses are worth 230, 240, 250. But why is this one on for 185? Then I would start digging more and I'd see, can I find any more properties similar to this that are on for much cheaper than the rest? And then I would start to figure out that, hold on a second, in this area, the properties that are done up are valuing at 240, 250, but this one's coming in at 185. And usually around there, the ones that need work are still 220, 230. But this one's at 185, and there's one other one that's on at 185. So I'm thinking, okay, let me just keep looking around this area and I'll keep tabs on that area. And I'll just keep looking at that area over and over again every week, every 2 weeks, and I'll keep seeing new properties come on. And there'll be one or two that come on cheaper. And it is quite difficult to explain because normally this has always been in my head and I'm trying to explain it now for the first time. It'd be good if I could find one, but you
Can
don't
I can
always
I
find
can
one
I
in
show
one
can
go.
I show you something maybe to help?
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
see if I can pull it. Let me pull property filter out here. Because there might be you're gonna love me maybe for this, because you could do this in 2 clicks really, right? So so when you have a lead generator, so like doesn't really matter where you're looking. This is just one example. You've got those motivated seller indicator over here, and one is below
Below
average
average.
price.
Mm.
So you can go and set it up, in the little cog here. You can say, right, on the below, where are we? Below average price. So I want to see properties listed for, maybe 10% below the average, or maybe 20% or more over here. So when you activate this, it will show you all these properties, right, that are below the average. So we move from 48 to the 24. So that's all the ones that are 10% below. And then if I see, I'm just looking at a random example, right? So then you can see over here where this is actually 23% below comparables in the area. So over 2-bed terrace in this place, wherever this is. What area we are looking at?
Even better, even better. So what
So
you
you
could do
go,
then you could use that filter and you could start going through them properties and start looking at the comparables and
yeah,
start
yeah.
seeing trends that, hold on a second, on this street that are done up are worth X. The ones that need work are worth X, but there's one or two coming on that are significantly lower. So if
Yeah.
I target them, instead of having to knock off, so for example, a £200,000 house, to get 20% discount, you need to negotiate £40,000 off. But if that one's listed at 180,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm already halfway there. I've only got to negotiate £20,000 off to get it for the price that I want.
Methodology, I think what you're trying to say is because I've seen the area you were looking at in Birmingham. So you're looking at places which are not the worst places. They are like okay areas where the value will be higher. But then you're looking for the ones that are already listed for less, and you try to figure out why. Is that
Yeah. Yeah,
correct?
no, completely, completely. So there was one that I saw a while ago, but I'm not too sure if that property is still on.
And I'll give this back to you in a second, and I've got a question. But just you mentioned about auctions, so I can see
Yeah.
here, for example, you're right. Like because there's a little auction sign here. So a lot of these properties they very much as auctions. So I can go here and filter it out. So I'll go. I don't want to see auctions, and then put the list down to actually the ones. It just pulls all the property you describe. And then my question from there, so is what about the letters? Because I know you got a lot of the stuff from the letters.
Yeah, so at that stage, that's when I will start sending out letters to that area.
And you
So
send to
when
that
I'm,
area, not
yeah,
necessarily
so
to.
I have marketed blankly to to all over Birmingham, as in different properties that I find. But what I'm starting to do now is, so if I'm finding a certain area, let's say within a quarter mile of that radius, I'll pick out 10 properties around there that I think are priced a bit cheaper compared to what the rest are,
Okay.
and then I'll send letters to them because quite a lot of the work's already been done. Do you know what I
And
mean? So that way I'm kind of trying to go for the low hanging fruit. I'm still sending letters to other properties in general where they're back and reduced and they've had huge price drops because
yeah,
they seem quite motivated. But at the same time, I'm also targeting them because
interesting.
because in my head I'm thinking it's low hanging fruit. They've already had some sort of price off and it's already cheaper than what I think it's worth. So if I'm thinking that property's worth 200,000 as it is, but it's been listed at 180 or 185, I'm gonna send them a letter because I'm thinking half the work's been done here.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if I just get another 15 or 20 grand off, which is quite usual, it's nothing unusual compared to trying to get 40 or 50,000 pound off. It's quite easier to kind of hit and the numbers work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of the examples you were showing, actually, a lot of them were already back and reduced. So
Yeah,
it kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
overlaps a little bit between the two, right? But it's a different approach. I never heard about doing like this before. So hopefully this little button helps you to save a bit of time, right?
Yeah, but I
Also,
think when you're first starting out, it's good to kind of try and have a look at a bit of everything. So you are going to spend time. I know property filter is designed to kind of cut out time as you would searching through Rightmove. But with this strategy, when you are first starting out, what you're going to find is you are going to be sitting around for a couple of hours, having a look, going through different areas, and trying to find these consistent anomalies with certain properties in a certain location that are significantly lower than their the comparables. And then what you do is you start targeting them because if, for example, I'm looking for 20% discounted properties, which is usually what I look for,
yeah,
and I'm looking at a price point of £200,000, for me to get that property at a price that I want, I need to purchase it for 160. So now, if I'm finding properties where I know that property could sell for 200,000 because there's plenty of comparables that show that it could, but it's come on for 180 or 185, then I'm going to target that property because half the work's already been done for me.
hey, mate. And something that hurt my eyes earlier is when you went to look at the comparables on Rightmove. Go, maybe you missed that update, but let me show you like something, right?
Yeah, you've got the sold prices there as well.
Yeah, it's all there with the pictures. So
Yeah, yeah.
when you go in the comparables, I know like a year ago, we didn't have the pictures, or like 3 months ago, 2 months ago.
Bad habits die hard.
Yeah, that's right. So you got everything in there now. The last sold
Oh,
over here,
wicked.
and you got all the pictures. So in the same screen, you got what's available, and you go back in time, right? What's available, sold subject to contract, and you can see the averages here, and you can filter things with like square meterage range and things like that to really go down to the actual comparables. If your property is a D, and maybe it's I don't know, it's 100 square meters. You put a bit of a scale like that, and it just scrapes removes all the non-comparables, and it gives you the actual comparables, right EPC, right square meterage, and you can even look at what actually sold, like the most recently, and it creates the average for you there. So hopefully that's valuable to you too today.
Yeah. That'll help. That'll help a lot. Now I don't need to spend time going through all of them. I can just below average and have a look at all the ones that are there. But yeah, that helps a lot. I think with this strategy, it is kind of time consuming at the beginning. But then what happens is when you start seeing locations where what I'm trying to describe is properties that are priced cheaper than what they are, what you'll find is it's not a one-off. For weeks there'll be a new one that's been added on, and there'll be another one that's been added on, and then what I would do is start sending letters out to them properties as well as your other back and reduced stock, but send letters to them because half the work's already been done. And I'm telling you, it's worked for me because I've done it on more than one occasion, wherein you
So
find
can
a
you explain a
property.
bit the work, the admin you did? So because you didn't have the direct to vendor campaign manager, and then how did you go about sending the letters, and then what happens when the phone rings?
Yeah, so what I would do, I would make a spreadsheet of about 100 properties that at a time that I'd want to send letters to. So I don't always do a batch of 100. So I would make a list of properties, 100 at a time. And there was a website called Stamp. I would go on there and I would transfer the CSV file over to them. They'd kind of get it all generated into their format and then just send the letters out. So it would cost usually, I think, about 85p or something like that for a letter.
Okay. That's
Send them out. And then I'd have a separate phone and I would use that phone to answer the call. So I know when the call's coming through for that phone, that's going to be someone for a property. I wouldn't mix it with your own personal phone because then you might get a phone call and answer it at a time where you're busy and you haven't realized that, hold on, that might be a vendor. And then you kind of get a bit stuck or you might answer the phone in a rush and it doesn't sound too good. Whereas with another phone, what you'll find is you'll know that, hold on, someone's ringing me about a property here. Either not answer it and then call them back at a time that suits you, or if you're free, answer it, or you can say to them, look, I'm just busy at the moment, agree a time and call back and then start getting into it. So what we'll do is, should we transition over to how I would speak to them and the negotiation?
yeah.
So what I'll do is I'm going to share my screen again. Let me just get the
Yeah,
PowerPoint.
so you just send letters to these properties that are priced below the average, or anything that's back and reduced is what you do, right?
Okay, so this direct to vendor negotiation framework is not something that I came up with. I've got to admit, I wish I did. But this was taught to me by Saj Hussain. So I've been part of Saj's Inner Circle since last year. And to be honest with you, when I came into property, I didn't have a clue. I did not have a clue at all. And in a short amount of time, I've done quite a considerable amount of deals, and I can give it back with the best of them now. So essentially, with this negotiation framework, the main key here is to find out the motivation of the vendor. If the vendor is not motivated and there's no real motivation and they haven't really got any deadlines or any kind of serious stuff going on, it's quite hard to get a huge discount on a property. So what you're doing here is looking for motivation. So the key points that I would stress, and I can't stress these enough, these are probably the most important things that you have to make sure that you have, is that it's a three-step negotiation, but it shouldn't feel like a negotiation. What it should feel like is you're having a conversation with a friend. So like you're sitting next to a friend and you're having a conversation and you're trying to sort out the problem that they have. And usually the problems are, they vary from all sorts. Either it's a divorce or maybe they're in a bit of debt and they need to get their equity out of the property as quick as possible to pay off their debts. But you want to kind of feel like a friend that's trying to help them rather than somebody on the other side that's trying to, just get the best price that they can. The other tip that I would give is never be, even if you are the only person that's working alongside yourself, don't act like you're the only person. Always throw in that there may be a business partner or maybe your partner or maybe a group of partners that you're working with, because sometimes situations come up where you can back yourselves out of them and say, look, it's not me, it's my business partner. So you could throw in a number, an offer, and say it wasn't me that came up with this, it was them, and this is what they're saying, and I need to make sure that they're happy as well. So that way you kind of keep your rapport with them, and they don't think bad of you. They think you're bad of your business partner per se. And then the other thing is finding out their motivation. That's obviously the key thing. And the final thing is get three prices off them before making an offer. Now that doesn't always work because some people, everyone's different, And some people are quite just hard-headed. They're like, just give me a price, just give me a price, just give me a price. And then when you ask them, look, what sort of price are you thinking? They'll say, look, you know what it's listed for, give me a price. So with them, it doesn't usually work, but there is a way around dealing with them, and I'm going to go into that as we go through this. So, okay.
What,
So
what
the
what
first,
did you mean? What did you mean, Sale, before on get three prices? What's that?
get three prices before making an offer.
Get them to give you like go down three times before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So if a house is on for 200, I'd always ask first, I know it's listed for 200, but what price would you accept? And then as we're going on, I wouldn't say in one go, give me three separate prices now. Or I wouldn't say, give me a price, and then a minute later, give me a price. So this three-step negotiation, how it works is when you're doing direct to vendor, you're going to get a phone call. So you can start talking about price then. Then the second time you get a price is when you're at the viewing. So when you arrange a viewing to go down and visit them. And then the last time you'll get a price is once you've done the viewing, you'll say, okay, I'm going to go back, crunch my numbers. When you come back, after a day or two, you'll give them a ring and you'll try and get another price off them. So you're slowly driving the price down. You wouldn't do it
Yeah,
all
yeah.
in one go.
So you really you don't offer. You have the conversation where you ask them to come a bit your way. You
Yeah,
let some time elapse, and then you ask them again to come your way. And like this at the end, when you when you kind of split the difference, as it were, at the end, their anchor is a lot closer to you, right?
yeah, of course. Because you when it comes to negotiations, before you actually start the negotiations, the last part, you should know the number that you need or the number that you'll be happy with to make the deal work. If you don't know that number, then you're not in a step to be negotiating. And you also need to be in a position where you're willing to walk away. Because if you're not willing to walk away, then you should not be negotiating. Because what you'll do is you'll start agreeing things, or start maybe you might build an emotional attachment to that house or something that you shouldn't be doing. And what you'll find is because you're not willing to walk away, you start giving up your side rather than letting the other side give up stuff on their side, and you don't want to be in that position. So essentially, with this, what it works is, so this would be the first call. So say, for example, you've sent out your 100 letters now. So this would be, let's say, a phone call comes in. So the aim of the first call is just to find out about the property and just slightly kind of touch on their motivation. Why are they selling? And that's it, really. You could just talk about the property and then arrange a viewing. This is how I personally do it, is I talk about the property for the first, I'd say, 10 minutes of the call. And then after I've got a bit of information about the property, I'll just straight away dive into their motivation. It doesn't work for everyone. Just find out which way works better for you. But it doesn't really matter, but this is the way I found works best for me. So essentially, at the beginning, you'd say hello, introduce yourself, you'd speak about yourself. They'll You can ask them questions about themselves. Just build a bit of rapport. Just try and get them to kind of open up to you slightly at the beginning. Ask a couple of questions. How's your day? X, Y, and Z. Just a normal kind of introduction, and then straight away you'd go into asking questions about the property. So you'd start with something open ended, like, what can you tell me about the property? And usually people will start talking about it's a three bed, it's this, it's that, it's got a bathroom. They might say it needs a bit of work. They might say it's in absolutely fantastic condition. You get some people that'll just say, what do you want to know? And then you're just like, okay. So then you've got to kind of try and guide them through and say, let me know how many bedrooms is it and how many bathrooms does it have? What work have you had done on the property? There's literally a list of questions that I go through, and I couldn't list everything now. But what I'll do is there'll be a bit of contact info for me at the end, and you can reach out to me, and I'll send you a list of the questions that I ask. So essentially, you'll just go through all the different questions, and once you kind of, because the reason why you don't want to start going into anything else other than the property at the beginning is because the reason they've called you and the reason you sent them the letter, from what they think, is you want more information about the property. So if you start asking them straight away, why are you selling, and what about this, and what about that, it might put their guard up. So what you want to do is just let them speak about their property for the first 10, 15 minutes or so. And once they've started to get a bit comfortable with you, then you can start delving into the more kind of questions that are a bit more personal about their situation or what. So the next stage, after you've asked about the property and you've gotten all the information that you'd like, what I would then start talking about is their experience with trying to sell the property, because most of the letters that you're going to send are probably to back and reduced. And if they've been back and reduced, they've been on for quite a while. They've been probably sold subject to contract, come back on the market, had another offer accepted, fallen through for whatever the reasons may be. So I would start speaking to them about their experience with trying to sell. You'd ask questions like, what sort of experience have you had with trying to sell the property? How many offers have you had? How many viewings have you had? And then if they say, oh, well, I've had about 20 or 30 viewings, and I'd say, well, how many offers did you get off the back of that? And they'll say, I got two offers. And I'd be like, wow, only two offers out of 30 viewings. But I wouldn't criticize or anything and say, oh, that's really bad and that must mean the property is. I wouldn't say any of that. I would just try and let them kind of think about it for themselves. That hold on a second, there's been 30 viewings, but you've only had two offers. I wonder why that is. And it kind of starts to plant seeds of doubt in their head. Anyway, I'd say, what sort of feedback has the agent given you? And then I'd ask them, why do you think it hasn't sold yet? Just help me to understand, what do you think about the property? Is it that it isn't selling, or isn't appealing to the people that have come in and viewed it? And with these kind of questions, they'll start thinking to themselves that, hold on a second, because a lot of people don't sit back and reflect as to what's going on in the situation. They'll start thinking to themselves that, hold on a second, you know what? I've had this on for 6 months. I've had 30, 40 viewings. Only two people offer. Why hasn't it sold yet? And they'll start questioning themselves, doubting themselves, and then thinking, oh, maybe this, maybe that. And it's kind of what you need, because at the end of the day, a lot of people, they think that their house is worth X when it's not. And what you want them to realize is that, hold on, it probably isn't worth what they think it is, because they've had it on for so long. Now, the next step that I'll usually go down is motivation. So I'll ask them if they've got any deadlines. I'll ask them the reason that they're selling, what their ideal scenario would be to get this sale done. So is it more so that you want to get it done within the next month, or is it that you want to get the best price? What's the single most important factor for you? And what you're trying to find here is, you don't want, sometimes they say the most important factor is the price. And that could be a bit of an issue, because if they want to get the highest price and they haven't got any time scales and they're not bothered about sitting for another 6 months, then it may well be that you might not be able to get the best price for it that you were hoping to get. But usually in this situation, when people start talking about, I've got this deadline, or I've got this debt to pay off, or I've got X, Y, and Z to do apart from price, then you start getting a bit of an indication that, hold on, there may be something with this one. And then I would delve into it further. And another thing that I would mention is that, look, people don't always open up and tell the truth straight off the bat. A lot of people will throw up something else. They'll just say, oh, I'm not really bothered. When it sells, it sells. But sometimes that may not be true. So what you would try and do is, when you go and view it, you'll try and figure out a bit more. Obviously, over the phone, you can't tell their body language. But when you go and view it, you delve into a bit more and try and figure out the real reasons. And what I find is, if you don't come across too salesy and you're just talking to them like it's just a normal conversation, like, oh, what do you think it hasn't sold? Or, what's the reason that you've got to sell? It's an absolutely beautiful home. It sounds like a beautiful home. I've seen the photos online. It looks great. Why do you think it's not? And then usually people start opening up and be like, X, Y, and Z. Or, if you say, it's a beautiful home, why would you even want to sell it? If I was you, I'd want to stay there myself. And then they'll start saying, I've got no choice, X, Y, and Z. I've got to sell because of this reason. And usually that'll get it out of them. But you do get a few that, they'll never tell you the truth, and you just can't do anything about that. Now, the next thing that I usually do is start talking about price. So I would straight away ask them what sort of price they're after. And I'd say at the beginning, when you're first doing this, is not to talk about price on the first phone call. And the only reason I did it is because after a bit you get comfortable and you've done this, so you can get into it without kind of getting into a sticky mess. And another reason why I do it is because if they're not budging straight away, they wouldn't even knock £1,000 off, and they're saying the price is the price, then there's no point even me going out to view it, for the most part, because then I'm just wasting my time. So I would ask them, I know it's listed for X, but what sort of price would you be happy with if we were to come to an agreement? Or And then they'll tell me a price, and I'll say, well, if you can't achieve that price, what's the next steps? What's your plan B? Are you going to wait another 6 months? And then I just listen to them say whatever they're saying. And let's say, for example, it's happened to me many a time where a property is on for 190,000, and I've gone in and asked them what sort of price would you be happy with? They'd say, look, if we could get 180, we'll do that deal. And then I'll say, okay, 180. And if you can't get 180, then what? And then they'll come back and say something like, oh, I'm not too sure. Maybe we'll have to think about it, or X, Y, and Z. Then I would say, so let's say somebody came tomorrow, viewed the house, they liked it, and they offered you 175. Are you telling me you'd say no? And if they say no, we wouldn't say no. We'd probably think about that. Then I'm no longer thinking about 180,000. I'm now at the new price of 175, and I would never mention that 180 ever again. The new price is set at 175. So from now on, we're only talking 175. And then slowly, slowly, that's how you kind of chip away at the price. Now, what I would do then is arrange a viewing, and I would say I'm free tomorrow or the day after, and I'd say I'm only free at this time or that time, just to make myself look a bit busy, like I've got other things going on, even though I don't. And then we usually agree a time and go down and have a look at the property. So this leads us on to the viewing day. So the aim of the viewing is just to get them to like you and trust you. So what I would suggest is get there early and check out the area, especially if you're not familiar with the area. Get there early, walk around, have a look at the other properties around the street, have a look at the kind of cars that are parked, how clean is the street, how well kept is the property, and have a look around at the outside of the house, the one that I'm viewing as well. Have a look at the roof for X, Y, and Z, whatever you need to look at. But do get there early because, if you've agreed a time, it's not good to get there late. They may have other things to do and it doesn't get you off on the right foot. So yeah, so once you've knocked on the door and you get in, the first thing that I would suggest you to do is before you look around the house, is ask them, should we quickly have a sit down and let's have a quick chat. And the chat would be based off the conversation that we had on the first phone call. So I would straight away go into, oh, yes, I remember you mentioned, you had the kitchen done and that was done. And I would start acting like I've forgotten what they said, only because I just want them to kind of butt in and try and correct me and start talking. And then that way the conversation flows. Because usually when you first walk into a house, they're thinking you just come in 10 minutes, you're going to have a look around, you're going to go, and that's not what you want. You want to be able to sit down and have a quick chat with them, but then start acting like you've forgotten things. That way it prompts them to jump in and the conversation gets going. And then that way you just start going back and forth again. Yeah, you mentioned you had this done, and how long ago was that? Okay. And since then, have you done anything else? Oh no, we haven't done anything else. Oh, okay. And at the same time, I'd be scanning around the house looking, if they've got a cat, I'd say, oh, that's a absolutely beautiful cat. What's his or her name? And I'd pet the cat, and then I'd say I've got a cat as well, and I'd start talking about cats. So if they've got photos of their kids or grandkids, I'd say, oh, it must be lovely. You've got your grandkids. How is that? And just start talking about things that you can build rapport with them. So and try and be, act like not act, but be genuine. Give them genuine compliments. Don't make things up. Even if the house is really trashy, and there's nothing you can find that's really nice about the house, and the toilet upstairs is leaking, and you can see the pipes in the ceiling, I'd still say it's a lovely area, and I wouldn't criticize anything. Do not criticize a thing in the property, because sometimes what it is you'll find that it's someone's home, they live there for 30 years, and even though it may not be in the greatest state, they take pride in what's theirs. So I wouldn't go into anything and start criticizing. So once you've spoken to them and you've acted like you've forgotten everything, then I would straight away talk about what their plans are after the sale of the property. So I would mention, oh, if the 175 that we've agreed, once you get 175,000, what's next for you? Are you, going off on a world cruise? What are you planning to do? And they'll start talking about, oh, we're going to do this, or, we're looking to buy another property, or, I'm going to just start renting. And then I start talking about, okay, and you mentioned, you've had it on for 6 months, you've had the price reduced a few times, the agent's not been very helpful. whatever they may have mentioned, I'd start talking about their motivation and the reasons why they're selling. Because now I'm in front of them, I can really get a gauge on as to whether they're telling me the truth or not. Have a look at their body language. Some people do get upset, so obviously, you got to have a bit of empathy and try and not be too just about the property and the numbers. It's people's business, and people do get upset, and people are finding it difficult. So you've got to show a bit of empathy and tell them that if you can help, you will help. And what I would then do is remind them that what they're currently doing doesn't seem to be working, and try and hint that maybe I'm the solution. So, I'd say, you're trying to pay off that debt. You said that you've got a debt that you need to pay off by X, Y, and Z, and the interest it keeps mounting up every single month. And you've been on the market 6 months. If you're on for another 6 months, you're gonna double your debt. Um, what you seem to be doing just doesn't seem to be working. What do you think? What do you think you should be doing differently? Help me to understand how can we get this sorted, X, Y, and Z. I'd always speak like that. I'd always ask them, what do you think? Help me to understand how can we get this done? That's the kind of the wording that you want to use. You don't want to say I, you want to talk we because we're in this together. Um, and then once you've kind of had the conversation about the property, the motivation, and letting them know that what they're doing at the moment isn't working, I would then say, let's have a look around the house. Now, while you're looking around the house, as I mentioned, don't point out anything, even if it's clearly something's wrong and needs attention. I wouldn't point it out. I would just make sure to let them know that I've seen it, and I'd just carry on walking. And at the same time, just continue conversation and building rapport. Speak about yourself, speak about them, ask them questions about themselves, and just get to kind of become their friend, and they'll start liking you and hopefully trusting you as well. And then that'll help, especially on the next call when you start delving into numbers and trying to really negotiate the price down. And before you leave, I would stop at a neutral place, so maybe the living room or the kitchen, and I would say, look, let's quickly have a chat before I go, and I'll let you know what we'll do next. And hopefully we'll be able to get something done. And I'll let them know that I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna crunch the numbers, I need to speak to my business partner and see what they're saying, and we'll get back to you in a day or two. And if we, I'll always mention this. I say, look, if we can do something, then great. I'll be more than happy. But if we can't, I'll just let you know that I'm not going to waste your time. I'll give you an answer in a day or two as to what's going on. So that way they kind of like, okay, Sohail's a great guy. He's going to let us know in a day or two. He's not going to drag us along for 6 months like the last guys did. Um, so yeah. And after that, I'd leave. I'd come back. I'd crunch my numbers. I'd already know what I want to offer. But again, I'd leave it a day or two, and then I'd get into giving them a call back after a day or two. So after a day or two, a bit of time's gone. They're probably thinking, where the hell's he gone? What's he up to now? Um, and what I would do, I would shoot them a message and say, look, are you free tonight at X, Y, and Z time? And we'd agree a time to give them a call, because I want to make sure that they're free and sitting down for this. You don't want them to be rushing and running around and they're not really, fully interested in the conversation, because you want to make sure that you get a deal agreed on this phone call. So there's two scenarios here. You'll get a scenario where the vendor's quite helpful and answers your questions, or you'll get another one that says, all right, mate, what did you come up with? What's the price? And I'm like, hold on a second. That's not what I want to do here. I want to try and get another price off of you before I give you an offer. So the first scenario is where the vendor is really helpful and helps you to get the deal done. So what I would do here is, as soon as you get on the call, hello, it was lovely seeing you yesterday or day before. Yeah, me and my business partner, we've been sitting down, we're crunching the numbers. And, before I get into it, I just wanted to get your permission. Can I ask you a few more questions just so I can see how I can get this to work for the both of us? And they'll say, yeah. And then I'll start talking about, okay, I remember you mentioned, you wanted 175. If I'm really cheeky, I'll even just say, I remember you mentioned you wanted 170, and if they don't say anything, I'm carrying on at 170. I just say, I know you mentioned you wanted 175, and I understand you've got the estate agent to pay, you've got your legal fees to pay, that'll be about 5 grand. So, that brings you down to 170. And then you've got, you've got the mortgage to pay, and just remind me, how much was the mortgage to pay again? And I just go quiet, and I'd say 8 to 9 times out of 10, they will tell you how much they've got left to pay off on that mortgage. You'll get the odd few that'll say, "Yo, why do you need to know that?" But 8 or 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you how much they've got left to pay on the mortgage. So the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to work out what figure they'll have left in their pocket all said and done. So if it's 175 and they've still got 140 grand to pay off on that mortgage, and they've got 5 grand of fees left to pay, that leaves them with £30,000 in their pocket after the sale's agreed. So then I would start talking about that number, and I would say, okay, so you're going to be left with £30,000. And I remember you mentioning that, you don't, you're not going to buy another property after this. You just wanted the money to go on a couple of holidays. So, how many holidays do you want to go on? Okay, I was planning on going here and here. Okay, so you need 2 holidays. So, what sort of figure would you be happy to be left with? And you'd still be able to go on your holidays. I'd start going down that line of conversation. I'd say, okay, so, you mentioned you needed to go on some holidays. You wanted to go on some holidays. Or you mentioned you've got a £10,000 debt to pay off. What sort of price would you be happy with once you're done? And you'll get some people that'll say, if I'm left with 20 grand, then yeah, I've got 10 grand to pay off my debt and I've got 10 grand left over for myself. And then that way you've knocked off another 10 grand. And I'll say, okay, so, if we could leave you with £20,000, are you telling me that, we can get this deal done? And they might say, yeah. Or some of them might just say, no, I want this or I want that. And then you just got to try and figure out, okay, what is it that they've responded with? And how do I drive this price down even more? So now the next scenario is where the vendor doesn't want to answer any of these questions, doesn't want to give you another price, and they don't want to tell you how much is left on their mortgage. See, with that now, it works a bit differently. So what you would do is I would straight away just say to them, okay, the reason why I'm asking you these questions is because I'm trying to see how we can get this deal done and make it work for the both of us. I've got to keep my business partner happy and I want to make sure that I keep you happy as well. But the problem is we've been crunching these numbers for the last 2 days and we're struggling to get the numbers to work. That's what I would say. Because then what I would do at that stage is I would just say, we're so far away when I'm making these calculations, I'm unsure of what to do. And I'll say to them, what do you think? What should we do now? And then they'll just say, oh, when you say you're doing I'm telling you, when you say, what do you think? After you've mentioned you've made the calculations and we're so far away on numbers, what do you think? They always say to you, well, when you're doing the calculations, what number have you come up with? I've never had any other response. They always say, well, what number have you come up with? What was the offer? What's the price that you've come up with? And at this stage, they've given you permission now to tell you the number that you've come up with. So it's not necessarily an offer. They've just asked you for what number you've come up with. And at this stage, if they've come up at 175 and I want to get that property for 150, I'll say, we were doing the numbers and, we've got to figure out that we've got to get this done and that done to get the property to what we need it to be. And, my number came in at £143,225. And as soon as I've said that number, I'm not saying a single word after that. I've just gone silent because I'm waiting for their response. You'll get some people that will start effing and blinding and saying, are you crazy? What the hell? You get some people that be like, oh, okay, because they weren't expecting that. I've even had one guy say, yeah, that'll do. So, it works. But the reason why you're gauging that response is because if they go crazy saying, oh my God, what the hell is this? You just wasted my time. What was that? And I'd say, look. I'd say, look, that's not my offer. I'm just telling you when I'm working out the numbers, this is what I've come to where it would work. But, tell me what could we do to get this to work? Where are you? You know where I am now. What can we do? And they'll be at 175, you'll be at 143. And I would just say, what do you think? What can we do? Where can we meet to get this to work? And I would just go quiet. And usually you'll get, no, it's not going to work. I'm not going less than 175. For the most part, that's what you get. You don't get all the deals done. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not going to sell you guys, a pipe dream when it doesn't exist. What you usually get is it's not going to work. But the odd ones do come back and say, okay, we could probably do 155 or 160 or whatever the price may be. And now you've slowly got them off another 10 grand or another 15 grand or another 5 grand. And I would just keep doing this over and over again, circling back and forth and be like, oh yeah, I'll have to speak to my business partner. I'll get back to you. And I'd leave the conversation at that. And just remember the number that you semi agreed on, 155. I'd leave it another day, come back, call them up, say, look, I spoke to my business partner and they're saying to me that they can't get it done for that price, but we can get it done for this price. And if we get it done for this price, we'll get it done. And whatever their terms were at the beginning as to what's most important to them to getting this deal done, whether it's the time frame, whether it's whatever it may be, I'll say, look, you want to get it done in 4 weeks, we'll get it done in 4 weeks. And I'll make sure I'll keep them happy on that. And in that way, everybody's happy and you hopefully get deals done. But I'll be honest with you, you're going to have a lot of conversations and a lot of negotiations because to knock 20% off, 25% off on a property, it's not easy. But the thing is, it can be done. With persistence and with hard work, it can be done. It's not that the deals aren't out there; they definitely are out there.
Yeah, it's a numbers game, isn't it? Sohail, yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
So what we'll go into now is deals that I have done using these techniques. So this property here, the first time was last year, end of last year. So I've done a DFI course with Saj, which is a deal finder intensive, where we were using property filter and sending out letters. I think Guillaume, you were at this event,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I was speaking to you earlier on. And that same evening, I went out and viewed this property.
I remember.
The
You said
situation with
you had to go early because you had this viewing. I'm like, this guy is not stopping, right? So that was really good. And you
you
made
know
and you
what the story behind this property was crazy. It was unbelievable. So this property was sold subject to contract at £230,000. Agreed a price at 230,000. Before that, they'd agreed 250,000, but the sale had fallen through. They dropped the price, I think, to about 240 or something like that. But they'd agreed at 230,000. And I'd sent this guy a letter. So I sent this guy a letter, and he rang me up a couple of days before that DFI event, and he was just telling me that the situation was he was getting divorced and he hadn't paid his mortgage in I think about 10 months, and he was starting to get letters, and he had quite a few debts, and he wasn't in a very good place, and he was desperate to sell, and the guys that he'd currently agreed a sale with, they were just stringing him along, and it'd been a couple of months, and he was getting fed up, and he just wanted it done ASAP, really.
so
So
was it on a sole subject to contract since a long time, this was?
yeah. So it was on that tab, sold subject to contract for a long time, and I wouldn't usually send letters to them. But I remember Gia mentioning once that send them the letter that, the letter went along the lines of, hi, congratulations on the sale of your property. You remember that one, Gia? Gia,
It works so well.
yeah. Congratulations on the sale of the property. I really hope, everything goes well for you. If anything was to fall through or anything was to happen, this is my number. Please give me a call. I'd love to have a conversation about buying your property. It was a letter exactly like that. And I sent that, and a couple of days later, I had a call from him. Now, straight away, I knew this guy was motivated because he was just very eager to get me in to do the viewing. And we'd had a conversation, and I said to him, I'll be free on Saturday evening to come and view the property because I had the event to go to during the day. And he said to me that that won't be a good time for me because he's going to Wales on Saturday morning and he'll be gone for a week because of work. And I said, okay, that's fine, that's not a problem. But then what he said to me was quite strange. He said, what I'll do is, he goes outside of my house on the porch. He goes, I've got a bit of broken sill. He goes, I'll slide the key in there. He goes, come down and let yourself in and have a look around and let me know what you want to do. And I was like, oh, that's a bit odd. I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I said that's a bit odd, but I was like, okay, then I didn't want to say no, so I was like, okay, that's fine. So he sent me a photo on the Saturday morning. He goes, I've left the key here. I was like, okay, that's fine. I spoke
Yeah.
to so many people.
You thought you were going to be abducted or something, right?
I know I spoke to quite a few people. Everyone said to me, do not go to that house. Do not go. If you do go, make sure you record yourself at all times so then they can't say that, you've taken something or you damaged something or whatever the case may be. And then there was a few people telling me stories of, there was this estate agent, she went to view a house and she went missing. And I was like, what the hell? What's going on here? But anyways, I went to go and view the house. It was late in the evening. I think it was about 8 o'clock. and it was dark at then times because it was like early winter was starting, and it was dark, and half the light switches weren't even working. So I was like walking around in the dark with my phone torch on. Every door I'd open, hello, is anybody there? Hello, is anybody there? I viewed the house and we went back, got on the phone with him, and did that exact negotiation steps that I've spoken to you guys about. Apart from the fact that on the viewing the vendor wasn't there, so I'd never ever met him until after we'd agreed the deal. And these were the numbers. I was meant to have a photo here. I don't know where it's gone. So yeah, so he wanted 230,000. We went back and forth. On the first phone call, I mentioned price, and I think we eventually come down to he said he'll take 210, and I was like, okay, I want to come and view it first. On the second phone call after the viewing, we'd agreed 181,500, and on this property is actually sold at the moment, so hopefully that goes through. So this one, the fees and all the renovations came to 36,750 pounds. So the total was 218,250. The end value at the time I was thinking was between 265 to 275. But the price that we've agreed so far is 280,000 with the people that are currently in the process of buying it. The agent fees, well, there's no agent fees on this one because the price that I've agreed is a private sale with somebody who actually lives on that road. They were interested in buying it because their family's getting bigger. They wanted another property, and the legal fees are £1,200. So based off them numbers, the total cash in was 218,250. What I thought the potential profit was going to be based off of these numbers, and what I thought the renovation was going to be, but it ended up, if we do complete at this price, that's what I'll be left with. So what I thought was the return on investment 16.6 to 21%. So the return on investment, hopefully if this goes through, will be 26.5%. There was a lot of headache with doing the refurb on this house, but it's all been done now. So that was one of them.
Good
That
job.
was through a letter as well. So the next one was this one. So if you have a look at this property was absolutely immaculate. There was literally nothing to be done, and it was in a very prime location in Birmingham. As you can see in the photos, the house is absolutely mint. So what ended up happening with this one was I did send a letter out to this property, and I did speak to the guys, but what I found on the over the phone was he didn't seem too motivated to me. So I didn't end up going out to view it, and it wasn't until a couple of weeks later this estate agent that had this property listed rang me because I'm quite familiar with them, and they said this guy is quite desperate and he wants to do a deal. So this is what happened in the end. So then what I said was I asked the agent. I said, "Is it okay if I speak to him? I just want to ask him some questions, and you guys, I don't think you guys will have the answers to them." And that estate agent was quite good to me. We exchanged numbers with the vendor, and we started speaking. So this property was originally on for 525, and then they dropped the price to 500. And at 500, they'd agreed a price. I don't know if it was 500. It must have been something below, I'm guessing. That went along for about nearly 8 or 9 months before it fell through. And then it came back on 470. And what the vendor said to the agent was, "You've got a week to sell it. If you don't sell it, I'm taking it off." So the agent was very in a rush to get it sold, and I think that kind of helped with me when I asked him to give me the vendor's number. They said, "Yeah, if you get the deal done, here's the number, just get it done," because they didn't want to lose the fee. So in the end, we went back and forth, and we agreed 362,500, which is I think about 112,500 if my math's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Discount.
Yeah.
So 24% discount. There was literally no work needed doing, so just the fees, as in my fee and the solicitor fees, and then I think there was some cleanup and whatever they did at the house. It cost them roughly around about 10,000. I don't have the exact figures, but it was roughly around about there. The good thing with this property was there was no stamp duty as well, so we managed to get all the stamp duty relief. I think the stamp duty on this property was coming up to roughly around £17,000.
Why was
The
that?
reason the reason why was because the person who was buying it, the guy who was buying it, he was from Hong Kong, and he was buying it in a in a trading company. So what he was doing, he was trading the property on. But
Yeah.
there were certain conditions that he had to meet, which he left to me. He was like, find out if this property meets this. If it doesn't meet this, I'm not buying it. So there were certain conditions that he had to meet. Then I was running around trying to figure it all out because I'd never come across it before. Speaking to solicitors, speaking to SAD, speaking to a couple of other property people who were in the trading space. And we'd come to the realization that this property met all them requirements. And in the end, he didn't have to pay no stamp duty on it. So he got away with another £17,000 there. And I was thinking the end value was between 450 to 475. But this guy, he wasn't bothered. He was like, look, I want to get it sold as soon as it goes in the market. So they listed it for a bit less and they've sold it. I think he sold the sales completely gone through now for 430,000. So the total cash needed on this one was 372,500 and the profit was 57,500, roughly give or take. He would have had some holding costs in that and agent fees that I'm not too sure what. So you could even knock off 7.5 grand for all of that, and it would have been left with roughly around about £50,000.
How much time do you reckon this took you to
It was
find this
quick.
deal?
It was quick. How long did it take it to?
You know, like
What was
if you were to track your time and say like it took me like and back to back all the time you spent on this is
on this deal?
just to assess your hourly hour on the 70,000 on the 57,000.
My time on this was hardly anything. Maybe 15 hours, 10, 15 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
It
So
was
yeah, it's quite
hardly
well worth
anything.
your time, isn't it?
Yeah, as soon as it went on the market, it sold straight away within the first week. And yeah, it was a quick turnover, quick turnaround. On an
Good.
annualized basis, that ROI is probably double because you could have probably
Yeah.
done two or three of them in the time that this one took
I
because it
talk
was so
about this, so it's like beating the price curve. So when it's just when they have just stupid expectation, it just puts everyone out, and then it means no one's interested. But you see, like this one, the reduction is like 112 or 24% difference from the asking price to what you bought it for, and then the value is you would have sold for 450, to a family, right? You would have sold within their reasonable time frame, but because they had these stupid expectations to start with, nobody was interested, and then it was on the market for a while, so people were wondering what's wrong with it, and so you want to beat the price curve. So I always say, ignore the asking price, and that's just a great example of that.
So this guy actually paid more for this property when he bought it. So where we agreed 362,500, he paid more. And when he bought it, he did all the renovations. So all this
Mm.
work that you can see, he did all of this himself. So he was a solicitor himself, and the reason why he was so desperate towards the end was he was moving down south, and they had found the perfect property on the street that they'd always wanted to buy on, and this was their property of their dreams. Like after this, there was no buying another house. This was the one that they were going to live in and spend the rest of their life. And he'd agreed a price, and the sale had fallen through on this one, and then it come to a stage where he was like, I don't want to lose this house,
Mm.
but I need to get rid of this one. And I think he'd put quite a hefty deposit in this one. So even after he paid his mortgage, he'd still have a bit of money coming out of this one.
Mhm.
Um, so he was desperate to get this one done. And he gave us a date. He said, I need it to complete on this date. And we made sure that we met that date. Even though there was a few hiccups as we went along, but we managed to get it done. So it just goes to show that sometimes the properties don't even need work. And it's not even about, oh, that is, dilapidated. So that's why we're going to get it below market value. Sometimes it just comes down to motivation that hold on a second, I need to get this deal done by this date because of X.
And
And
uh, and what were the signs of the motivation? How did you find that these guys were motivation? Was it the sales run through, the reductions?
yeah. So he had two reductions and a sale fall through. I'd send him a letter, but on the phone, because he was a solicitor, he was very close to his chest, and he was
Mhm.
very hard to negotiate with. So with this guy, it wasn't just the first phone call, the second phone call, and the viewing. We went back and forth a few times, so we didn't get the price all the way down on that first phone call. We did chip it down considerably, but I knew we could get more. So I went back to him again and again and again. It was about three, four conversations because he was quite tough. This guy was. He knew what he was doing. He had way more property experience than I had. I'll tell you that much. So sometimes when I'm talking, trying to act like I'm some serious investor, he would catch me out, and I was like, oh, you know what I mean. So I had to be very careful with this guy, but
Well done.
we got it done in the end. So that's the main thing. And I'd also like to stress that this one, the on this street, properties were selling for 550,000. at a year before, 2022. But I think that's why they were thinking they'll get 500, 525. But you know, the market changed, and anything over 500 right now is quite slow. So that's kind of why he didn't sell. So this is the third one. This one actually sold to this was purchased by Saj and his business partner Ida. So this property was purchased by them. They've actually doing a YouTube I think series on this property. So if you go down to Saj's YouTube page, you
Oh,
can
wow.
probably have a look at what's going
Sourced
on with this
sourced by
property.
you.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of this one. Yeah, so what I was mentioning earlier to you guys about finding properties that are priced lower than the others in the area, the comparables. This was one of them. So this property is based just off a high street, and on that the around that high street, any road directly up that high street, the property prices are absolutely ridiculous. Like you're talking like 400, 500,000 for your two-bed terrace house. And this was on for ages, for like months, for 325, and it wasn't selling. And I didn't have a clue why. The agent didn't have a clue why. But all I knew was that everything else around there is like 400, 425. The really nicely done up ones for like 450, 460. And I was thinking, you know, what's going on? Why is this one so cheap? So I did what I did and ended up getting a deal done on it. And with this one, I didn't have to knock off, you know, a huge amount of money because it was already quite cheap for the area. So that's what I was trying to say is like you'll find properties in a certain location that why is that listed a bit cheaper than all the others? And now going back to this same location, when I look back, I'll see one, two others that pop up that are quite cheap compared to the rest, and that's the ones that I'm targeting. But obviously, you don't get a deal done on every single one, but it just really kills the amount of negotiations that you need to do. Instead of me having to knock off, you know, 20, 25% on this property, I only had to knock off 10 or 15% to get the deal done at a good price. So these are the numbers on this one. So the asking price originally was 325. They couldn't sell it. It came down to 300. We agreed at 253,000. All the costs, so everything, including refurb, will be £90,000, which brings them. I didn't even write down the total there. Hold on. I think it's 343,000, and then the end value on that conservatively is 425. I personally think they'll get a lot more, but conservatively is 425. The potential profit on that deal alone will be £82,000, and it's just a bread and butter two-bed terrace house that they're just adding an extra bedroom to kind of uplift the value a little bit more. And yeah, so
Very great. It's really good. Awesome, mate.
I think that's all me done for today.
Yeah, appreciate
Guys,
it.
I'm a huge introvert. I don't really do social media, but just for everyone here, I've made an Instagram account and I literally just made it this morning. So if you want, you can follow this account. Everyone, please send me a message and let me know what you guys are up to, what you guys are doing, the deals that you're doing. If in any way, shape, or form I can help, I'll be more than happy to do so. I'm also just trying to connect with, you know, more people because I'm really rubbish at doing that. And I thought, you know, this is the time. And everyone who sends me a message, what I'm going to do is I haven't made it yet, but I'm going to make a detailed document of all the questions that I ask and the steps that I ask when doing the negotiations, and I'll also send that across to you guys, so you guys can use that hopefully when you're going out negotiating properties, you know, with the vendors. So I really hope that helps as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And it's funny you say you're an introvert because most people think they can't negotiate because they're not people, and you're very much, on that spectrum to be more of an introvert. So you just follow your own system, right?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, I like to just sit at home and do nothing. That's probably why I get deals done. Got nothing else going on.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So just to sort of wrap up a little bit what you said, so if I go into property filter, and so you set up your lead generators in your area, and from there, so if I go after anyone, just to show like step by step for people, so you got your area set up with your criteria of the deals you want to go after,
Yeah.
and then what you do is one is look at any of these properties that are below the average price over there, and you create a campaign. So, for example, you put any properties you do any property that's available, or Do we need to have fallen
Yeah,
through?
obviously the back and reduce stuff is the best.
Yeah.
But if there's only six in the and that's the only location that you're after, then you want to be sending more than 6 letters, then I would just send it to all of them.
Okay, awesome. So then you go here, you can select all properties, send letters, and then you can create a campaign, you know, the Sohail campaign, for example, over here. And then in your direct to run the campaign manager here, in this when it says send letters, you can create a letter design, which could be anything to do with properties fallen through. You got letter 1, letter 2, letter 3, letter 4. It's all set up for you. You got all your follow-ups if you want every 2 weeks, or maybe the third one a bit later, or whatever you want to do. You can program all of these letter campaigns, and then you click a button really over here when you've got your campaigns here. Select a template, like any template we would have selected. Give it a go, and then where stamp, you have to do all of this manually, and it's 85p. It's 99p on Property Filter, but it's literally took me less than a minute to do, right? So here, obviously, this is my demo account. I don't have the thingy, but it's 99p per letter. Click send, and then all your campaigns, your follow-ups, everything is brought to you. And then when this happens, you get a bat phone, so a second phone, or so that you're not distracted, and you know that it's a vendor calling, and then you follow the steps. So he went into a lot of depth to explain how you negotiate, chip off the price. You never really offer. You get them to come closer to you, and with these backs and forths, and actually quite a lot of details. I recommend having a look at the recording, and then you get this deal done. Beat the price curve. Like ignore the asking price, refurbed or not refurbed. I mean, today was packed with lots of golden nuggets. I really hope this. It's literally click a few buttons. The letters are sent, and the phone rings, and you follow these steps. Thank Soheil later, and thank us later. Right?
I wish you had this after back in the last year. It saved so much time.
I know you
It's
done
extra
all of this.
14 pence. Bloody
All,
hell.
all of them you done manually, right?
Yeah, it was one by one by one by one.
So there we go. Well, that's really been awesome, man. Thanks a lot for sharing. I really enjoyed I feel like I'm hearing Saj sometimes, in the way
Oh, he's way better than me. If any of you guys ever have the honor of hearing Saj negotiate, oh, it's mind blowing.
Yeah. So we do when he's got this deal finder intensive course running, we do sort of offer to go and have a chat with Saj, because we know that people do really well from it. So it's a really good example of that. And then, as you said, Saj is really hacked Property Filter to start with to get the students to manually send the letters. And we had Tammy earlier, who's done 5 deals in the last year on the call with quite a few of you guys. And Saj was like forcing you to do the admin of doing the letters to get into this framework, So pull the letters from Property Filter, send them, and now today it's just a few clicks, so it's so much easier. So, and then you follow this step, and you're doing really, really brilliantly at it. So really well done. All right, thanks so much. Thank you everyone for joining. And I know we've overrun a little bit, so I'm conscious of time. Thanks, Sohail. Really appreciate you coming and sharing your framework today with us. Have a great day, and speak with you soon. Bye-bye.